one of the hardest things to ever experience.
I'm being honest, and I think that's just who I am.
I see a therapist, and I have tons of workbooks like a nerd. I write music. I try to take what's going on and turn it into something beautiful in the best way that I can.
For 3 years, while the company quietly collapsed around them, not one of its founders, officers, or directors said a word. That's not a headline written by a tabloid. That's a direct line pulled straight from a federal lawsuit, and it's aimed squarely at Selena Gomez. Gomez, her mother Mandy Teefey, and their former business partner are now facing a securities fraud lawsuit from investors demanding nearly $1.2 million back. And buried inside the court filing are allegations that go far beyond bad business decisions allegations involving substance abuse, a fractured mother-daughter relationship, and years of silence while investor money allegedly funded a company that was falling apart from the inside. Let's start with what this company actually was, because it wasn't some random side project. Wondermind launched in November 2021, co-founded by Gomez, her mother Mandy Teefey, and entrepreneur Daniella Pierson, best known for founding the newsletter company, The New Set. The platform was built around mental fitness tools and content, with Gomez publicly positioned as co-founder, chief impact officer, and head of marketing. In 2022, the company raised roughly $5 million in a Series A round at a valuation near $95 million, led in part by Serena Williams' investment firm. And on paper, it looked like a real business, with real momentum. That's exactly the problem the lawsuit is built around. Two investment firms, Wondermind SR's 44 and Bespoke Wondermind's PV, filed suit in federal court in Delaware, claiming they invested close to $1.2 million based on promises that never materialized. According to the complaint, investors were told Wondermind had already secured advertising partnerships with major companies like JP Morgan and Fidelity, was projected to bring in $5 million in ad revenue that year alone, and had grown to 150,000 newsletter subscribers. The suit alleges none of that was accurate, and that a promised Wondermind app, the company's supposed centerpiece product, was never built at all. It's worth noting this wasn't a small, obscure fundraise, either. Wondermind launched during a period when digital mental health startups were attracting massive investor interest. Funding in the space reportedly topped $5.5 billion in 2021 alone, more than double the year before. That context matters, because it means Wondermind wasn't competing for scraps of investor attention. It was raising money in one of the hottest, most closely watched startup categories at the time, which only raises the stakes on what investors say they were promised versus what they actually got. But here's where the story stops being a normal business dispute and turns into something much messier. The lawsuit claims investors had no idea how bad things had gotten until a September 2025 expose published by The Cut blew the lid off the company's internal chaos. That article reportedly detailed a company in what it called a state of utter disarray, including claims that Mandy Teefey struggled with a substance abuse problem that impaired her ability to run the company, and that Selena had been actively distancing herself from Wondermind because of a long-running personal rift with her own mother. The lawsuit also alleges the company was missing payroll and struggling to pay vendors on time, well before investors were ever told anything was wrong. Mandy has firmly denied the substance abuse allegations. In response to the original 2025 article, she said she started Wondermind because she genuinely wanted to help people dealing with mental illness, and she described the substance abuse claims as lies spread by a handful of disgruntled former employees, adding that she found it disappointing the media was willing to amplify them. Now here's a detail that makes this whole thing even messier. The lawsuit claims Selena had actually signed a contract obligating her to a real level of involvement in the company, and then simply didn't follow through. According to the complaint, Gomez purported to sign a contract obligating her to perform, and then ignored it. That's a striking claim, considering how publicly involved she appeared to be at the time, including a 2022 interview with ABC News announcing Wondermind's launch, where she spoke openly about seeing a therapist, filling out workbooks, and using music to process what she called some of the hardest things she'd ever experienced. And it's not just Selena and Mandy caught up in this. Their former business partner is facing arguably even more serious individual claims. Daniella Pierson, who left Wondermind in 2023 and also founded the media company The New Set while still in college, is named as the sole defendant in a separate securities fraud count. Accused of making misleading statements to encourage investors to buy stock, along with individual claims of conversion and unjust enrichment. The lawsuit alleges Pierson used investor funds to help cover her New York City apartment, reportedly costing around $60,000 a month, and separately claims she exaggerated the size and value of her own newsletter business during investor pitches. Allegations the suit says echo earlier reporting that had already raised questions about her readership and valuation numbers. Pierson has categorically denied all of it. Through a spokesperson, she said she welcomes the chance to present financial records proving the claims false, insisting she never used investor money for personal expenses and, in fact, invested her own money into the company without ever drawing a salary. So what actually happens next? The lawsuit covers multiple legal claims, including securities fraud, common law fraud, and breach of contract, and the investors are seeking rescission of their original investment, meaning they want their money back entirely, along with damages and legal costs, and they're asking for a jury trial. As of publication, representatives for Selena Gomez, Mandy Teefey, and Wondermind itself had not responded to requests for comment on the lawsuit. Given the size of Gomez's public profile compared to the roughly $2 million actually at stake, legal observers have already pointed out that this case matters less for the dollar amount and more for what it reveals about how celebrity-backed startups get funded and what happens to investors when the star behind the brand isn't as involved as advertised. And here's what makes this whole situation land even harder. This isn't Selena's first venture into mental health advocacy, and it's clearly not something she treats casually. She spent years running the Rare Impact Fund, her nonprofit dedicated to expanding mental health access and education for young people. She's said the fund is now reaching roughly 2 million young people every day through crisis and suicide prevention resources, calling it something she hopes is only the beginning of a much longer commitment. That's the tension at the center of this entire story, a public figure who's built real, well-documented credibility around mental health advocacy, now facing a lawsuit that alleges the for-profit business built on that same credibility was quietly falling apart behind the scenes for years, while the people who trusted her with their money were kept completely in the dark. So here's what I want to know. Do you think Selena genuinely didn't know how bad things had gotten at Wondermind? Or is that hard to believe given how publicly involved she seemed? Drop your take in the comments below. I'm curious whether you think this ends in a settlement or an actual trial. And if you want to stay updated as this case develops, hit that like button and subscribe, because you know I'll be back the second there's a real update. See you in the next one.